Hello, I'm Dave.
And I'm Rob.
And welcome to episode 10. Is that an anniversary episode? We'll find out. This is an anniversary special, our 10th anniversary special, episode 10 of The List Makers, a mini podcast from The Doctor Who Show, where we take a top 5 topic, each make our list and discuss them. No hard and fast rules, though, all about the chat. Rob, we have a wide-ranging topic this month. Top 5 stories that are not TV stories.
I've been thinking about this one a lot, Dave, and I think I've got something interesting to bring to the table.
Yeah, look, I've tried to go out there as well and see what we can do. Is this going to be a snap-free episode? Maybe, maybe not.
We'll see.
We will find out. In fact, that's what we're going to do right now. As always, we will each make our lists with 5-ish on the topic, explain our picks, we won't interrupt each other, and then when we've both made our lists, we will have a chat about them, all done in 20 minutes. My turn to go first.
Okay.
A couple of rules I set myself, I just want to say beforehand.
Yes.
Given I talk about the Virgin books a lot, and I think a lot of people know what my favourites are, I've decided to have a Virgin-free list on this occasion.
Okay.
Because I think that, I just think otherwise I could just list 5 new adventures, and that would be no fun for anybody, and that's a whole different podcast.
Sure.
And I also got very close to putting Children of Earth on the list, because I think that is a fantastic production. But then I remembered, even though it was made basically by the Doctor Who team and RTD, it's not actually a Doctor Who story.
No, it's not.
So it's not eligible. So shout out to Children of Earth from another series.
Yes, absolutely.
Number 5 on my actual list, stories that are not TV stories. Number 5 is The Paradise of Death. This is, for those who aren't aware, a BBC radio story from 1993, starring the Third Doctor, the Brigadier, and Sarah Jane. Mm-hmm. It is a wonderful, in my view, audio. It's written by Barry Letts. It has all of that sort of Pertwee era vibe in terms of what's sort of going on and the characters, but done completely budget-free, so they can go to multiple alien worlds, and you can have great big, huge dinosaur-style reptiles hunting the Doctor through the jungle, and you could have massive fields of exploited agriculture and all this sort of thing. It's all done really, really well. Peter Miles is in there as a baddie. Harold Innocent, I think, is in there as well. Nice. So it's really strongly cast. And look, I know a lot of people are screaming at me that I should have a big Finish pick as an audio pick, but sorry, I love The Paradise of Death. Perhaps because I was at the right age, because it is one of those last gasps of Pertwee, but I have that in there. Number 4, another personal pick, and that is Shakedown, The Return of the Sontarans. Mm-hmm. This is a 1990s, 94, I think, basically made for video story in which we have Carol Ann Ford and Sophie Aldred and Brian Croucher, Jan Chappell, Michael Wisher, all of those sort of people, and of course Sontarans and Rutans. This is a story very clearly in the Doctor Who universe, and so I think I can count it as a Doctor Who story. And it's just a really fun adventure with lots of characters and cool Sontarans, fun Sontarans. If you haven't seen it, look, it's not a classic, but it's a lot of fun. It's worth checking out. Mm-hmm. Number 3, perhaps my most obscure pick we'll see, is the stage play The Curse of the Daleks.
Oh, okay.
Now, this I have come across because of the Big Finish adaptation, and I really enjoy this play because it is written by David Whittaker. It's written at the height of Dalek mania in the early 60s. It's before the Troughton era had even come along, and it's a really interesting and exciting adventure on Skaro with Daleks. You can see Whittaker trialling concepts, particularly that are going to come up in Power of the Daleks, but even Evil of the Daleks. I will say that the rampant sexism of the 1960s is very, very cringe, and I am aware of that as I make the pick, and I do apologise for that. I'm not endorsing that. I want to make that clear. But just as an adventure with Daleks in the 60s, I think it's a really interesting and fun story.
Okay.
Number 2 is a novel. It's a BBC novel, and it is The Face of the Enemy by David A. McGinty. This is the BBC book from the past Doctor adventures that actually doesn't have the Doctor. The Doctor goes off in the TARDIS with Jo at the start of the story, and then all sorts of weird things are happening, invasions and all the rest of it, and the Brigadier's going, well, we have to solve this without the Doctor. How do we do this? hey, we've got this master guy in prison. Maybe he'll work with us. And there's this Ian and Barbara couple from Cambridge that are kind of very across this sort of alien and tech stuff. Let's get them involved. And that's the concept there that's really good. It is a sequel to a Pertwee story. I won't say which because that is a massive spoiler. But the Master working with the Brigadier is a wonderful concept. The Master is nuttier and more evil than he ever is on screen because it's a book. It's a fascinating read. Again, I encourage you to get out there and see it. Number one, my favourite Doctor Who story that's not a TV story is on screen, however, it's on the big screen, and it is Doctor Who and the Daleks.
Nice.
I could watch this Peter Cushing movie again and again and again. It takes all the best parts of a Terry Nation adventure script and then just throws cinema money at it. Armies of Daleks. I can remember being a very, very young boy borrowing that story from the video shop on a regular basis and just being transfixed by the massive petrified jungle, the huge Dalek city, all the doors, the hundreds of big, colourful Daleks. Peter Cushing's amazing. The TARDIS is completely different, but awesome. It's just so wonderful. So they are my picks, Rob.
No snaps.
I didn't think we would have them. I thought I was getting a little obscure there. So, have you been obscure or have I missed the obvious? Let's let you make your list.
Well, I'll say up front, I took the title you gave me, Stories Not Standard TV, and I really focused on that word standard.
Right.
Because all of my 5, well, at least 4 of them have been on TV.
Right.
But they weren't standard TV.
I'm really keen to see where you're going, Rob, so make your list.
Coming in at number 5, I'm going with Dimensions in Time.
Ooh.
Now, I wanted to choose this because I wagered it wouldn't be on your list. And we should have at least one non-snap. As it is, we have no snaps at all. But also because it's utterly batshit insane. It's horrible. It's the Star Wars Holiday Special of Doctor Who. And if you haven't seen the Star Wars Holiday Special, lucky you. But this is one of those scenarios where I see these CGI heads of the Doctors flying around the screen. And I see all these actors who have been in the show over 30 years hamming it up. And I see they're on the EastEnders set and all of that. And it's just really hard to stop watching. Whenever this comes on by chance, like when I'm on a video site or someone mentions it and I haven't seen it for a while and I slip it on, I can't stop watching it. It's so horrible, it's good. And it's a real snapshot of these actors at a time where Doctor Who didn't exist any longer. So if you want to see Colin a few years after he had left the show, this is it. You know, if you want to see Colin with the Brigadier, this is it, and so on and so forth. It's just so horrible. It's good. So I threw that in as my number 5, kind of as a fun pick.
Yeah, I didn't expect it.
Okay. In at number 4, I've put A Christmas Carol. And this is the only modern Doctor Who special I'm referencing here. And this is, I don't think this is standard TV because it's a special. It's not part of a series.
Yep, sure.
And it's frankly one of the few modern Doctor Who specials I think is really special. You know, there's a bunch of competent ones like Christmas Invasion, Voyage of the Damned, The Next Doctor, stuff like that. But then there's ropier stuff like The End of Time, Doctor Mysterio, Husbands of River Song.
The Wardrobe one.
Oh, I was going to say Doctor Widow and the Wardrobe. Yeah, stuff like that. This one just sticks out among all of them for me. It's got the proper Christmas feel. I mean, no shit, Sherlock, it's cribbing from a proper Christmas story. I get that. But it adds more to it. There's laughs. They sideline Rory and Bloody Amy, which is great. They just push them to the side for most of it. And there's a ton of sadness. You know, this does it all. I have a real soft spot for this one, and I know it's not shared universally, but for me, this is absolutely top stuff. Moving into number 3, I've put Time Crash.
Oh,
basically,
nice.
Davo. You know, what else can I say? Well, plenty probably. I could scarcely believe that with Doctor Who in its imperial phase and knocking everything out of the park and David Tennant in the role and all of that, suddenly we had Peter Davison, Davo, my Doctor, step onto the TARDIS set as the Doctor and go one-on-one with Tennant, you know, in this beautiful, beautiful little piece of writing. And it's not just any piece of writing, but I think it's Moffat sort of penning his own feelings about Davo, which were also Tennant's feelings about Davo, I believe, so that when he says, "You are my Doctor," It's totally meta. It's the Doctor saying it to the Doctor. It's Moffat saying it through Tennant. It's Tennant saying it. And it's also my point of view as well. And the first time I saw this, I had this overwhelming feeling like, did I just hear that correctly? Is this the most brilliant moment that's ever happened? You know, and it was, full stop. Coming in at number 2, I've put The Night of the Doctor. Now, this is the only one on my list. I ponder whether it was actually on television. I assume it was, but everyone I know, even in the UK, watched it as an online video. Do you know anything about that?
I don't think it was broadcast. At most, iPlayer, maybe.
So maybe it wasn't on television. Okay, this is the one out of the 5 that maybe wasn't. Now, this is a story for want of a better word, that came out of nowhere. You know, it had a Doctor I was so into, yet I hardly had any on-screen references for. And it was just bang on. Putting aside, I think the 8th Doctor probably should have fought in the Time War himself, because that would have been some real drama, you know, of the nicest man in the world being forced to fight in a war. If we had to have this War Doctor thing, then this was an absolutely brilliant way to bring it about. You know, they set it on Khan, the Doctor's being super doctorish and even dying, literally dying, because he wanted to help someone he'd only just met. You know, I know I'm saying nothing profound when I talk about it, but wouldn't it have been great to have had a mini-series with McGann as the Doctor as well? And I mean, we're 8 years on from this and it still hasn't happened, so I doubt it ever will. But, this was just fantastic. I could hardly believe this happened either, much like Time Crash. Coming in at number 1, it's another Doctor Who special. It's one I talk about quite a lot on the show. It's The Five Doctors. Anyone who's heard our podcast for any length of time will know my mad love for The Five Doctors. My go-to line is, it's just a comfy pair of slippers. It really is. And I see that someone who's, say, 25 years old today, watching this for the first time, literally won't see it the way I did. They can't see it the way I did. You know, I was still young when it came out, and it was relatively new Doctor Who that had only just aired. And it was a way to see all these different Doctors interacting, you know, well, at least 3 real Doctors interacting. I think I saw this before I saw the actual first 3 Doctors in the 3 Doctors from Pertwee's era. So this story just always fascinated me. And as a final point, you know, asking for the novelisation of this is how I got into local fandom, because the local club president overheard me ask the librarian for it and came over and said, hey, I've got a club. Do you want to join my club? So that's how I got into fandom. So the 5 Doctors, incredibly important to me.
Wow, we have taken those lists in very different directions, but where you've gone is really, really cool. And the biggest thing that I sort of got when I was reacting to your list is actually memories. I can remember where I was when I first saw Dimensions in Time. I can definitely remember the moment I first saw that first minute of Night of the Doctor, for example. Very fond memories of the 5 Doctors, etc. So it was a very evocative list that you had there, Rob.
Thank you. I mean, yeah, that's what I'm running on here. You know, I see completely where you've gone. Like, you've gone away from TV to audios and books and things. And gosh, I have a lot of books here. I could have picked some wonderful books. But yeah, these are things I thought, well, it's not standard TV, and if that's the criteria, I'm running with it.
Yeah, no, it's really cool that you did. The Dimensions in Time, look, we have to pick that one out of the list and explore it, because it is a crazy pick. I mean, you know. It is derided by fandom. I think that it is one of those things, though, that, like a lot of Doctor Who, particularly of that sort of era and a little bit earlier, now that it's aged a bit, it's a lot easier to just enjoy it as the piece of fun that it is. I think it really suffered at the time from the fact that there were all these rumours going on that we were going to get something in the 30th anniversary. We were going to get the Dark Dimension. We were going to get a series coming back. There's going to be American Money. All these rumours, and they all sort of got mixed together. And then suddenly it's like, hey, we've got the piece of television they've made for the 30th. Watch this, and you pickled in time. Like, this is it?
Well, I was going to say, I mean, 5 Doctors on my list. 10 years earlier, they were making 5 Doctors for the 20th anniversary.
Wow.
10 years on, this is where we're at. Some slightly portly actors in costumes that don't exactly fit running around the EastEnders set. Yeah.
It's so weird to think of it only being 10 years between those two, because at the time it was the difference for me between being 3 and 13, and that's a lifetime.
Yeah, I mean, go back 5 years now. Jodie Whittaker was about to become the Doctor.
Yeah.
You know, and this is only 10 years, so it's a tiny amount of time.
Yeah, and look, it has sort of got that mix of some actors who are very clearly trying to take it very seriously, and others who I'm sure are just taking the piss and just like, what? Okay, I'm running with this, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's good. What did interest me is that I wonder if Doctor Who is perhaps a little bit more limited in terms of what it's doing at the moment compared to what it used to do. Maybe to a little bit, maybe not, or maybe just in a different way. I mean, we don't get stage plays anymore like we got Curse of the Daleks and Seven Keys and all the rest of it, but we get the spectacular. Now, I know which I'll prefer, but maybe I'm being harsh to say we don't get that sort of thing. Maybe we just get different durations of it.
Well, when you started talking, I thought the path you were going to go down is the way that people assume any anniversary special must have multiple Doctors in it. Because I'm thinking this next one coming up, what if it doesn't?
Yeah, absolutely.
Does Doctor Who get painted into a corner by not having things like you're mentioning, stage plays and such? Does it get painted into a corner by people assuming multiple Doctor stories are the only way to do an anniversary? And so on and so forth. I think that's a really interesting concept. But to talk on your list, I wonder, you had novels and things. It's still very easy for someone who's listening to this who's never seen, say, Time Crash or The Night of the Doctor to just go online and they can find it and they can watch it in its entirety. But some of these novels you're talking about, it's actually reasonably hard to get a hold of them now, and they're sort of fading into obscurity almost. When people like us talk about them on podcasts, I'm sure there are people out there who just can't access them very easily at all and will never read them, never know what they're like at all because they can't get them.
Yeah, I mean, even something like The Paradise of Death, I have no idea if you can get that online now, where you can get copies of the CD. I mean, I first got it on cassette, and I'm pretty sure you can't get those anymore, except, probably very expensively on eBay. And even when we talk about age, I mean, Doctor Who and the Daleks, that must be, well, I mean, it's obviously over 50, but like the show itself, 60 must be coming over the horizon for that movie.
Yeah, you're quite right, actually.
And so I again wonder if somebody who is a teenager now, say, and has come to the show via the modern era, if we said to them, go back and watch Doctor Who as a movie, would they see it for the sort of the wonderful adventure that we do, or would they just go, this is a kind of naff movie on a 60s budget?
Well, I had some people on Twitter recently, people I didn't know. I was just looking at the Doctor Who hashtag and seeing what people were saying. And it was two guys, and they were debating between themselves how the Cushing Doctor fitted into Doctor Who. They just didn't know. And I had to step in and say, well, he doesn't really, he's his own thing. He's a human, blah, 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 blah. And then my friend Rob McKnight from TV Black Box dropped in and said, but in Moffat's novelisation of, what was it, Day of the Doctor, I think, he writes in that the Cushing Doctor is part of the Doctor Who universe because they made stories based on the Doctor's life on Earth. So he does exist in the Doctor Who universe, apparently. He's just not one of the Doctors.
There's also a one-page brief encounter in a 90s DWM, which has John Pertwee, while he's exiled to Earth, basically bored on a weekend and goes to the cinema and watches Doctor Who and the Daleks.
Nice.
So, look, there's lots of fun ways to do it. A very wide-ranging list. We are back in our snap-free zone,
Yes.
but we are running up against the clock, so...
Oh, again. Okay.
We will once again check our hat of Rassilon that we've borrowed from Turlo. And, this is the first time we've got a topic that's been added in by our listeners.
Oh, great.
And this is top 5 console rooms.
Oh, do you know who sent that in?
No.
Okay. Thank you, whoever you are, for sending that in.
I rushed to put it in the hat when it did, and I forgot to put the person's name on it, which I must correct in the future. So I'm very sorry, but we will be doing your list.
And if it was you, let us know on Twitter.
Yeah, we will amend that when we send this out. So thank you very much, and oh my goodness, the time is well and truly out. So I've been Dave,
and I've been Rob,
and we will make some more lists very soon.
Bye now.
Goodbye. Wow, we have taken those two lists in very different directions.
Sorry. I'm good.